What's up, everyone? You are back with District Baseball, as today we are doing a District Nationals episode and checking in on our Washington Nationals during this spring training as we lead up to the season. We have a little bit of news to talk about. The first thing being the Nationals added competition in the outfield, which is one area they didn't really need to add competition.
Yeah.
Adding Eddie Rosario to it's basically a minor league deal that's basically a major league deal. I know everyone was like, oh, he's a minor league deal, it's fine, but you have to think he's going to be making the lineup, pushing someone out like Alex Call potentially. Maybe there's a trade on the horizon. But Trey, what were your immediate reactions to the Eddie Rosario signing?
Well, I tell you what, it was interesting. I think I picked him in our little Nats
You did.
little off-season prediction, roster prediction thing that we did. So I was actually on that.
So I got Gallo, you got Rosario.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we got two of them correct. I mean, he's a solid player.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that. He can hit, and he's not a terrible defender. He's not great, but he's serviceable in left field. It's an interesting signing because you do have a trade candidate on a 1-year deal, and it's technically a split contract. So he doesn't have to play on the major league roster, but we pretty much think he's going to end up starting in left field probably for at least the first half of the season. I don't think it's terrible, personally. If they want to give some of the prospects just a little more time, it's not the worst thing in the world right now. However, there is a guy who happens to be hitting pretty well in spring training right now, who's also an outfielder, who is also a top prospect, and that would be Mr. James Wood. And it's tough because there's arguments from both sides about what to do here. If you hold him till May, you get an extra year of service time, and that's certainly what the team is probably going to do because that's how front offices operate. However, there is the option of starting him on the team, and there is the stipulations now with Rookie of the Year stuff. You get a draft pick if you start a guy in the major leagues and you don't manipulate his service time, and then he wins an award. Now that's obviously one player out of all of the other rookies. He still has to win the award, so that's very risky to do. But it is an option, and it is intriguing because of how well he's hitting in spring training. He's already got 3 homers, and his strikeout rate is definitely way down compared to where it was at the end of last season in Double-A. So I'm definitely interested to see what they do. I'm predicting they will start him in Triple-A, and that he will come up once they get that extra year of service time or at the deadline, depending on how well the other outfield potential players are playing, because we have Rosario, and Winker obviously is an outfielder, but he's probably going to be more of a DH type guy. And then Gallo is probably going to play first base, but he can play the outfield. So there's a lot of options here for them to do something with some of these tradable contracts. So I think that's probably the main reason why they're going to end up waiting on Wood and see if they can get some value for some of these other contracts.
Yeah, and I think the initial reaction I had was this almost speaks more about Stone Garrett than anything else.
Yeah, that's true.
But then I also got annoyed because they signed... James Wood has cooled off a little bit since the signing, but James Wood was red hot, arguably the best player in all of spring training at the time they signed Rosario. So it's it didn't feel as much of an open competition as we probably thought it was.
Yeah, for sure. Because if it really was,
which is also annoying.
Then
because Rizzo went on Grant and Danny and was like, "Oh, we're gonna take the best players regardless of age." Da 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 da. Well, if that was the case, James Wood's probably on the roster, and you probably don't sign someone to compete with his perceived position on that roster, being left field. Literally the day before they signed Rosario, they had James Wood playing left field, and everyone's like, oh my God. If you look at the major league roster, we have Robles/Young in center field, Thomas penciled in right field, so left field open. So it's James Wood playing left field for really the first time since high school, it's like, oh man, they're doing this thing, and then the next day they kind of show us that they're not, and that's annoying. I get it, but it's like, don't say you're going to have an open
just
competition.
Stop lying to us. What,
right,
like,
you can just say you don't think he's ready or you don't want to stun it. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, there's been a constant theme of the past, like, 3 years of we're just being lied to with what they say, and then they do something else. Just, if you want to do that, fine. Just tell us you're going to do it. Stop fucking lying to us. It's so irritating.
Yeah, and that's where I really got frustrated. Like, again, I get signing someone that, you know, or like counting on someone that isn't Alex Call to sort of replace Stone Garrett or fill in for Stone Garrett until he's healthy. And that also not being a prospect, so that way, you know, you're not hurting their development. Because there has been several times throughout the past few years or so where they've relied on a prospect and then that prospect's development has been stunted. Donovan Casey comes to mind in that regard. So I get it. It's just frustrating how we got here. Had they signed Eddie Rosario to a deal like this in December, January,
no
I'm
problem.
fine. But it's like, you know, James Wood, probably could benefit from spending time in AAA. I don't dispute that. But it's like, why wait until Wood kind of proves he's near MLB ready to then sign more depth? Yeah. It's just frustrating.
Right in front of him.
Yeah, so that part's frustrating, but I do agree with you. I think James Wood does start in AAA. I think the Nationals, you know, care about draft picks, but they care about manipulating service time more.
Yeah, for right now.
They're still one of those teams in the kind of traditional thinking, and they're certainly not the only team to do that, so I'm not going to, throw stones in a glass house or anything like that. But, it's just... It was just a frustrating way to get here. But just, you know, speaking strictly on Rosario, I think it's a fine signing. Like, I have zero issues with it whatsoever. It does seem like Alex Hall's on the way out because, like, David Martinez even said that he used these words, open competition, in regards to center field. He said there is an open competition in center field and mentioned Robles and Young. Mm-hmm. No mention of Alex Hall. But he did say Robles clearly has the edge due to kind of seniority, tenure, whatever.
And the fact that he goes off every spring training.
Right, which is fine. I understand that. And Young has been fine, but not like... But that's just kind of who Young was as a prospect. Like, just a fine... You know, he should have a role on an MLB team, but maybe not be an all-star kind of thing. But Robles is finally in a walk year, so this will be the last year we have this experiment going on. Dylan Cruz doesn't seem like he's quite ready yet. Again, also fine. So I'd imagine Wood and Cruz start in AAA. And then once this roster clears a little bit with trades or DFAs or injuries, that's when you'll see these guys called up, most likely in June sometime. So again, I get it. It's just frustrating, kind of the sequence of events or series of events that led us here. So it is what it is. I'm not too beat up about it because I don't think the Nationals are going to do well this year anyways, but it would have been nice to see James Wood in that opening day lineup.
How did Eddie Rosario get a split contract, but Nick Senzel got a major league contract, like, immediately?
Because he's friends with Lane Thomas.
I mean, that has, like, what other explanation is there other than that? Because,
I mean, genuinely, Gio Urshela signing for less than Nick Senzel is insane to me, because if I was an MLB GM, I would have signed Gio Urshela weeks before I ever considered signing.
You could have gotten Senzel in a minor league deal. There's almost no doubt in my mind he wasn't getting signed to a major league deal by anybody else.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that at all.
So I mean, third base and Brady House, he's going to factor into the equation in the next couple of years at some point as well. So Senzel, whatever. The real area of concern for me right now that I kind of thought would be, but I at least thought it would be lower on the list of priorities, is second base.
Yeah.
Luis Garcia looked horrible.
He's making
out there,
stupid ass decisions.
He's been kind of bad, more bad than good recently, but like he's looked horrible out there to the point where it's just like he's already in the kind of proverbial doghouse, and to be in Davey Martinez's doghouse, like you have to kind of be bad. Like Davey Martinez is so, he loves to be everyone's best friend.
He has to be bad and also young.
Right. Yeah, that too. Loves to do the you gotta earn it bullshit. But anyways, like Luis Garcia, he was already on thin ice. He has done nothing to prove that he should be removed from said thin ice. Your biggest competition is Nasim Nunez, who can't hit. He has a good glove, he has speed, but he can't hit. So he may fill in this year, but it's going to be the most excruciating process to get through. And then your next best option is Jake Lou, who, listen, great story. I get it. Let's be honest, though, and say Jake Lou was terrible last year.
Yeah, horrible.
Like, yeah, I great story, you know, I think people are clinging to Jake Lou so much because they want to reframe that Nationals development prospect narrative.
Yeah.
And they're just really clinging to that. But Jake Lou was terrible last year. And then you take another step down. You have like Trey Lipscomb, who I actually am still a really big fan of. But is he really ready?
No.
Are you forcing him into a situation that he's not ready for? And that kind of feels like the answer is yes. So now it's like, all right, well, if we were going to sign a guy, why not go sign a middle infielder, right? You could have had Tim Anderson a week ago, which, you know, I wouldn't have loved, but at least it would have been something, you know? Like, just the thought process and the disconnect between thoughts and actions, or words and actions, it's just incredibly frustrating. Like, they've been saying for a year now how much Luis Garcia needs to mature and how much they basically don't believe in him, and they've done nothing to at least provide depth or address that second base position.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating because he has a lot of hitting talent. I mean, we've seen bursts of it, but the mental mistakes and the lackadaisical like throws that he's making sometimes from second base. I don't want to focus entirely on one guy making mental mistakes because it happened. Like especially yesterday. I don't know if you watched the games, but
there's a lot of base running mistakes with this team too.
Yesterday, the whole team looked like dog shit. So honestly, it wasn't just him, but he happened to make like 3 mistakes, and then he got picked off today. Like I don't know. I still think he has talent, but maybe he's a change of scenery guy. Could be. Whatever they're telling him isn't.
He's gonna need to be. He's gonna need to be. But at the same time, you would.
But we don't. There's not another option right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say you kind of say the same thing about Carter Keyboom, like change of scenery guy, but like he's still sticking around because there's just no one else.
Yeah. So he's probably gonna
until Brady House is ready.
Garcia's probably gonna start as our starting second baseman this year, but I would imagine he's definitely gonna be, like you said, on thin ice for sure.
Yeah, but there's like nothing underneath.
I know there isn't anything there. That's
nothing.
That's the only thing. Like Darren Baker. I mean,
who's probably not ready.
He's not an MLB hitter right now.
No,
so,
he's not.
I mean, he's got maybe not, but he's got the glove. But like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess at that point it's just like, do you want a glove for a second baseman or a bat for a second baseman? Because that's pretty much what you're asking at that point.
And like that doesn't even mention first base, which. You know, they were like, oh, Joey Meneses is our first baseman. And now they're working out Joey Gallo there. And Joey Gallo, for all of his deficiencies, he's a gold glove outfielder. Like, he's really good in the outfield. Like, that's kind of a more underrated part of his game somehow. And he's working at first base, and he can play first base, but, like, that's not traditionally the position he's been playing. But he's been working exclusively at first base. Yeah. So it's like, okay, it kind of makes sense. Opens up the outfield a little bit and moves Meneses back to a DH role. But, like, we had issues with Meneses as the primary DH last year because he just doesn't provide power. You need power from that position. Meneses also looks terrible in spring training. Joey Gallo looks terrible in spring training. Yeah. So it's just like, you know, don't put too much stock into spring training, but at the same time, there's not really anything outside of really like James Wood that has been giving us optimism for spring training either. So it's just...
Bullpen looks good, though.
This is the Nationals. Yeah, well... Pitching's always ahead of hitting.
I do think this bullpen has potential for sure. Like they actually did make some good additions. Derek Law, Matt Barnes, Dylan Floro still hasn't pitched in spring training. Hopefully he gets healthy soon. But there's definitely something there that it should be the best unit of any of the either the starting rotation or the lineup. I think the bullpen is
the bar's the floor, my friend. So
for sure, 100%.
I mean, Riley Adams hit a home run the other day, so maybe he can
put him at first. We've
put
been
him
saying,
at first, put him at DH, call up Drew Millis.
We've been asking for Riley Adams to get some first base reps for like 2 years because like he keeps hitting, but it's just limited. So like
he's not exactly a good defensive catcher.
No, definitely
either,
not.
So it's like you're not losing anything by switching positions.
Yeah, I agree with that. I want to see his bat like in an extended period. Like I don't think he's that great, but he's hit well in a limited time.
Solid.
Yeah, so I don't know. We got again, it's sample size stuff. Let's give him some more plate appearances. I mean,
in a lot of respects, like if you exclude Candelario because of the trade, Adams was sort of like our third best hitter.
Yeah, no, in terms of F4, he was like fourth, I think, just because of his offensive production.
Right. It's like, Thomas and Abrams for sure, but then, Riley Adams is kind of, if you wanted to include Meneses last year, like he was fine, but again, the power was really concerning, or lack thereof.
Yeah. Adams hit a homer yesterday too in spring training.
Well, yeah, that's what I.
Oh, did you say that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's what made me think of it. So Abrams look fun. I don't know. The Nats team, the Nats are the Nats. It is what it is at this point. Until I see a firm recommitment from the Lerners, it's just.
We're just kind of grasping at whatever we got.
Yeah, which I don't even know if we talked about, like the Lerners not selling the team, but
they're not selling the team, and we knew that they weren't the whole time.
Right. It kind of just seems like they're holding out for a better offer or to get money off the books, or like waiting for the Masson situation to resolve so that way they can get more. Yeah, this doesn't seem like a recommitment. This just seems like a holding out for a better offer type thing, which they've been doing for the past 2 years. So
yeah. Well,
meanwhile, those Orioles sold overnight.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and for less than what we were asking, or the Mariners were asking. I mean, either way, we'll have a full roster breakdown and predictions for this team once spring training is more closer to ending. But we just wanted to get some initial thoughts out there about the signing of Rosario and a couple other things.
Quick one today.
But yeah, so we'll have a full Nats episode going up before the season starts with all our predictions, all the roster news, and everything that you could think of regarding all that. But yeah, so check us out on Twitter or X. Check us out on TikTok as well at District Baseball, right? On TikTok, I can never remember.
Fully
we have two different
out.
ats because of.
Well, yeah, Twitter, it wouldn't let us get that second L in there in baseball, so we had to shorten
SMH.
it. But TikTok, much more understanding.
Yeah, so check us out. Links in the description below. And give us a follow. Subscribe, hit like, all that stuff, and we will be back next week with another MLB episode, and then back with the Nats episode coming closer to the end of spring training. Let's go baseball.
Yep. See you guys.
Peace.